I'll let you get going while you're doing the introductions. Yeah.
So, all right, I think then I'll shoot the thing. So, good afternoon, everyone, and a very warm welcome for today's webinar from Ideas to Preparation, British Academy's International Writing Workshops program. Thank you all for joining us, and it's great to see you all coming from different institutions and joining us for the webinar today. This webinar is organized by the Research Development Committee of the UFHRD, and it reflects the UFHRD's long-standing commitment to supporting research development, scholarly writing, and also international collaboration within the HRD community. For those who may be newer to UFHRD, this forum has been working for about 30 years as a supportive international member network, and its purpose is to promote HRD as a field of study and practice, and also to create, develop, and share leading education, research, and practice that advances individual and organizational knowledge. So UFHRD has been great and provides a lot of opportunities for networking and collaboration through its annual conferences, the committee activities and partnerships with other organizations. And it is actively supporting the dissemination of international research and practice through the associated journals and other communication platforms. Today's session focuses on the British Academy International Writing Workshops program, which aligns very, very closely with these aims. The whole intention of these workshops is basically to cultivate professional networks and mentorship, and also to provide researchers, particularly the ones based in developing countries, with access to academic expectations for the journals, and including the international journals. And so the program is basically designed to equip participants with the knowledge, the confidence, and the skills basically needed to develop publishable work and navigate the publication process successfully. Okay, so this webinar is about learning directly from the experience. So we are delighted to be joined by two successful awardees who will share their practical guidance, the lessons learned and expert advice to help you develop strong and competitive proposals. So it's a pleasure to welcome Professor Maura Shaheen, Professor of International Management and HRD at the Edinburgh Napier University. So hi, Maura. And we also have Dr. Nico, Director of Postgraduate Research Studies at the Middlesex University, London. Hi, Nico. Across today's session, you will gain practical insights into what makes a strong application, how proposals can be structured and refined, common strengths and pitfalls to be aware of, and crucially, what reviewers are looking for when assessing submissions. So we'll hear first from Nico, followed by Maura, and then we'll open the floor for discussion and questions. Please feel free to use the chat to note questions as we go along. So yeah, with that, now I'll hand over to Julie, who will introduce our first speaker.
Okay, thank you very much. Well, I have to confess I'm a failed in this endeavor. I've applied twice, once before COVID and once after the COVID pandemic. So I'm really interested in success stories here. So I'm really pleased to introduce Dr. Nico Pizzolato, who's an associate professor in global labor studies and director of the postgraduate research studies at Middlesex University in London. He's a great champion for, I know, retreats and doctoral study, and I've been an external for some of the students from Middlesex in the DProf. So I think it's a great program. And it's interesting you have a history, UCL history PhD as well. So I think writing clearly is one of your strengths. So we've asked Nico particularly to talk about his Migrants in Transition writing retreat for ECRs, turning publications into books, and about the kind of motivation for applying, the application form, which can take a very long time in my experience, particularly looking at gender and issues like that. So I did one on Thailand and one related to Lesotho. We were trying to argue how that would benefit these countries and build capacity and collaborations. So why he selected particular focus and country would be very interesting, and just tips on strengthening our bids and making the retreats impactful. So I'd like to hand over to Nico, and thank you very much for giving us your time. It's about 20 minutes or so, 25 minutes would be great. Okay. Thank you.
So thank you for inviting me. Thanks, Palvi, for all the organization, and Julie for this presentation. Very nice to meet you, and it's also very nice to know this organization that I wasn't aware of. So I will probably say maybe just a little bit of a kind of background how I came to be interested in this scheme in the first place. It has in part to do with my background in humanities, in fact, because when I moved to Middlesex, I moved, well, for several reasons that is too complicated to explain, into a business school, and I was one of the few humanists in the school, and I realized quickly that I had kind of more interest actually in the writing aspect of research and especially in relation to supporting doctoral students and early career researchers than many of my colleagues who sometimes were looking at writing in a more just sort of reporting of research rather than the making of research. Anyway, this is a different topic, but just to say that very early on, when I started to work initially within the professional doctor program, which has many talented applicants and individuals, but many of them are not very familiar with writing kind of research-informed paper or writing for academia. So I started to focus quite early on writing and thinking through writing, and then how to develop doctoral students through writing. So I was then involved in a scheme run by the British Council that I now unfortunately can't remember exactly what was the name of the scheme, but it was very similar, that it was aimed at developing early career researchers. And we ran two successful workshops in Vietnam with a kind of full program of development activities. And that's kind of the background that I carried into kind of this other scheme for the British Academy, because I'd kind of developed a certain sense of what could work in terms of development in a sort of international context. So, Julie, you mentioned kind of failed attempt. This attempt is actually the second one. So this application was built on the basis of a previous one. The previous application that I developed with my colleague Tim Freeman and Lillian Miles was based on the topic of migrant health in Indonesia, and in particular, migrant health of female factory workers, which was a topic really interesting for me at the kind of intersection of the expertise of the three of us who applied for that scheme, but we were rejected. Now, as you said, there is a lot of work that goes into an application because it's about really trying to put forward the best possible program of development for researchers in that particular context. And my understanding of the reason we were rejected is that the topic was a bit too narrow for the scheme. Not that it was of interest, but it felt that it was narrow in terms of creating that sense kind of capacity for in the area. So in fact, I should mention that one of the key aim of the scheme, I believe, is to build research capacity in developing countries. And so I think the scope of the scheme, I think, has to be carefully considered. That was my lesson, I think, that I learned from that I wouldn't call it failed application, because we use a lot from that application in the following one, but it was a rejected application. The other thing about the scheme is to have strong contacts and strong networks in the country or countries where you want to where you want to collaborate with. And it was at this point that one of our co-applicants, Lilian Miles, she changed institution, and she came across a scholar at the University of Westminster. Her name is Federica Mazzara, and she mentioned, well, Federica has a lot of contacts in Tunisia for aerial studies, and they would like to do something like that, but they don't know how to do it. Shall we all collaborate to pull together an application? And so the collaboration was that Federica Mazzara brought her network in Tunisia, and me and colleagues from our institution, we brought that expertise of devising that kind of program of work for researcher. So the outcome was this application, which is called Migrants in Transit. I should mention maybe the full name, so it gives you a sense. Migrants in Transit, a transdisciplinary writing program for emerging scholars of migration in Tunisia. So in terms of the scope, it still has a defined area, but it's a bit broader than what we attempted before. Let me, I just for convenience, I put down a few slides so that they can share it afterwards. So maybe I'll share them. And also, probably, if you could help me with the timing, if I get close to the end of the please let me know. Hmm. Can you see my slides?
Yeah, we can, yeah.
Okay, they're very basic. Sorry, so they're not fancy. Okay, so these are the details of our project. The focus was developing early career researches of the Mediterranean crossing, in particular in Tunisia. So I should mention that Tunisia, as in the past few years, has become one of maybe the main starting point for these journeys through the Mediterranean of migrants coming very often from sub-Saharan Africa. So it's been really the center of kind of that field of study. And we were quite broadly encompassing in terms of who could be part, arts, humanities, and social sciences. The goal was to have 15 ECRs, early career researchers, as participants, all affiliated with Tunisian institutions. They didn't have to be Tunisian nationals, but to be to have that affiliation. Now, one important point, and remember, I'll return to this, is the mentors, scholars in the field, both in the UK and in Tunisian institution. That's quite important, I think, in my view, to maintain a sort of equity, which is, I think, another principle at the core of this scheme. The scheme is not only about writing, but it's about publishing. So we brought in, I think, 6 journal editors from the UK. They didn't join in person in Tunisia, but they joined in kind of online connection. So the main activity was a week-long series of workshops in Tunisia, but there were pre and post activities. And that's, again, a very important aspect of the scheme, because they want, I think, researchers to be supported throughout and to enable them to get to maybe something close to a submission point, or maybe an article ready for submission. The outcome, okay, so that was activity. The unexpected activity is that we were very cautious with our budget, so we didn't spend everything that we spent less than we can budget for, and so we were able to do a follow-up workshop in person in London, bringing the Tunisia colleagues over here. That's something that is not very much emphasized in the call, because the call is always aimed at going in these countries. But actually, we learned really from the Tunisian colleagues that in terms of equity, they also would like an opportunity to come over here. It is a very much a development opportunity for them. So I think that was a very good, I think, unexpected outcome of the workshop. although it wasn't on the original application. In terms of the purpose, was to develop draft for submissions in leading journals in English language. And so that was an interesting aspect, because obviously Tunisia is, in terms of kind of lingua franca, is French rather than English. So that, I think that there was an additional value, I think, for participants in also understanding a little bit how to shape this up in a kind of English language. And I think we went beyond expectation, because eventually the workshop resulted in a submission of a special issue of a journal called Crosslinks, which is a leading journal in the field. So something that to bear in mind about the scheme, and probably others will contribute on this as well. It is to support writing. It is to internationalize research in a given field when it is kind of too much dominated by kind of scholars in kind of Western country. It's about fostering the career progression of participants, and so that's part of your argument. How what you are doing is going to support the career progression of participants, and the broader purpose is to build this kind of long-term capacity in that particular country or countries. In my view, there should be very much a focus on participants in the application. What will participants do exactly? How will they benefit? What they will be able to do after the workshop that they couldn't do before. Also, clarity about which participants that you want to attract to the workshop. I think the funders want clarity about that. And so we ask for participants to be at a level in which they had already a draft article of, maybe not a complete draft, but a good draft at the point of application to the project. So we require in the call that in order to apply, applicants should include a draft article. And also identified some target journals. Another important, I think, element is the ratio between participants and mentors. We had quite a high ratio because we had 6 mentors and 15 participants. I don't know whether this was an element that got us to the finishing line, but yeah, that was what the application was. Mentoring, be very specific about the mentors, meaning explain why you have chosen those mentors. What are they bringing to the project exactly? What is the experience they're bringing? So showing that connection between the experience of the mentors and what they can give in the workshop, not only because these are the people that it might well be the case, but why what are they bringing? What is exactly the mechanism of the mentoring? How would that take place? For instance, because we had pre and post activities, the mentors were supposed to meet the participants already before the workshop in Tunisia, and then they could follow up afterwards. So the suggestion was that could be potentially the beginning of a relationship of mentoring between the two that might even continue after the scheme, right? So that's a little bit how it was designed. I think, in my view, one strong aspect of our project was that there was this sense of equity, that it wasn't a bunch of British or Western European scholars coming to Tunisia and tell people what to do, but it was a partnership between Western European and kind of local scholars who brought a lot to the conversation. true that the Western scholars were also because of the language were those who were familiar with the standards of publications in English language, but the local scholars brought a sense of what could work in the local context or not. I think one really good outcome of the workshop was the realization that institutional ethical approval, for instance, which is also often required kind of level of journal submission, was not very solid in some of the institutions in Tunisia. So we devised a way in which participants could go through a ethical institutional approval, which would be considered valid from the point of view of those journal. Not that any of those was engaging in any unethical scholarly practice, but it was about creating a sense that that there was a process for that. The other thing is that how will you know that? So there should be a little bit of a mechanism of evaluation within your proposal, right? So how do you know that you're reaching the outcome that you are setting for yourself? In our case, it was about having something ready for submission, for publication. If that's not your goal, maybe you might want to have other mechanism of evaluation. It could be also that you're giving a sense that the participants will be embedded in research or mentoring networks in the future. So I think you should give a sense that you're going to provide a little bit of evidence for a long-term impact of the grant. And finally, as you can imagine, the panel reading these applications is interdisciplinary, so it should really write for a kind of audience which is not specialist in your field. It's all about the participants, so don't spend too much time talking about your research expertise. I think it's not really about that. Other things are common to other grant applications, budget in a kind of cautious way. Maybe we were extra cautious because we saved all the money. Anticipate what challenges you might have and constraints and so forth, and promise only what you can deliver. So maybe I can pause here, stop here.
Yeah, it'd be good to open up
some questions. Yeah.
That's really helpful. Great. Can I just ask two questions? One is about the mechanism for, do you do any selection interviews, or do you just take the drafts? And secondly, how many people actually went to Tunisia?
Yeah. So we didn't do any interviews, but we had the draft and the CV, and I think a number of these participants, because Tunisia is not a large country, were working with supervisors who were known to the mentors in Tunisia.
And the UK, who went from the UK? How many?
No participant. There was no participant from the UK.
Facilitators.
Yeah. Facilitators.
Yeah.
It was 4 of us.
Yeah. Okay.
A fifth one was supposed to come, but didn't come last minute because it was still a post-COVID period. People were a bit not at ease with traveling, and the others all connected online.
Yeah. Oh, that's great. Thank you. Yeah, I think because Tunisia is quite close, I guess I can see where you kind of have money to spare. So I think we have a question from Mara about explain about the ethics, and then John wants to ask a question. Elaborate on the point about ethics that you made.
Yes. So what was useful in that conversation with the participants and the Tunisian colleagues was to understand that actually the mechanism that those universities had there in terms of institutional approval ethics was not very solid from the point of view of a journal in the UK, for instance. So what we did in that context was to establish a process that they could run internally that could be accepted as solid, and so that would not be an obstacle at the point of submission that they had not gained like institutional approval.
Thank you. It's really helpful for where we're at, actually. Thanks.
Thanks, John.
Nico, hi, it's John Hepworth. I'm Secretary for UFHRD. Perhaps on a similar vein, you could expand a little on the mentoring comment that you made. For example, did you go as far as to having a basic contract as to how mentoring might work?
No, there wasn't a contract, but it was a sort of agreed set of activities. So we agreed that we would have in a certain period before the workshop, there would be a kind of a schedule of mentoring one-to-ones between so every participant was assigned to a mentor. So each mentor had about two or three participants assigned. So there was a period of mentorship online. Then during the workshop, in which so the workshop was organized in sessions which were collectives, in which sort of workshop style sessions, in which we're talking about, I don't know, avoiding desk rejection when publishing, and referencing styles, and for instance. But then there were also sessions which were just one-to-one, and these were sessions in which it was kind of very in-depth feedback on the draft that were kind of produced. Then after the workshop, the participants continue to work on those drafts. And so 6 months later, there was another round of feedback and meetings online between mentors and participants, and they could look at a new version of those drafts. So that's a little bit, that was the structure, roughly.
Thank you. How many partners did you list on your application then? Did you list several from the UK and 2 in Tunisia, or?
No, in fact, we
Just 2
only had 2 partners in the UK and 1 in Tunisia.
And from what I've seen, a lot of people have very complicated ones. They think they've got to do like 3 countries, and it gets like really messy. So what I like about yours is the simplicity of it.
It's
in a
very
sense.
yeah. I know that
Yeah.
some proposals are like that, you know. But the partner in Tunisia was in a way host partners, in the sense that the participants were coming from all over
All
Tunisia.
over.
They weren't
Yeah.
only from that institution.
Mm-hmm. Okay, excellent. Thank you very much. Really appreciate that. All right, so over to you, Mara, and then we'll have some questions and wrap up. Yeah.
Hi, thank you.
I'll just
thank you,
introduce.
Sorry,
Maura, should I
Palvi.
introduce you? Yeah.
There's an agenda here. I
I'll
missed out,
I
Palvi.
was
Go
ready to
ahead.
go.
Yeah, I'll just introduce you to the participants so that they know, the speaker well. All right. So yeah, Maura Shaheen is the professor of international management at the Business School, Edinburgh Napier University, UK, and she specializes in multidisciplinary research at the intersection of human resource management, human resource development, management, and economics. She's best known for her scholarly work on the complex relationships between HRM practices, HRD, and organizational performance, including financial and innovation performance. She's also featured in Elsevier Stanford's top 2% scientist list, and is ranked among the world's top HRD scholars at 22 worldwide. And her research has been published in various CABS 3 and 4-star journals. Maura has led on research projects funded by the British Academy, EU, ESRC, ESRI, Leverhulme, and private and public sector consultancy projects. And in addition to her research and consultancy roles, Maura is editor-in-chief, Journal of Organizational Effectiveness, People and Performance, a leading journal in human resource management and organizational performance, and she is part of the editorial boards of several journals as well. So welcome, Maura, again, and we're looking forward to hearing from you.
Thank you, Palvi. Thank you. And thank you, Nico, for your presentation. I was worried it would be too much overlap, but we've taken a different approach. So I think hopefully it'll be very complementary, and I learned a lot from yours. So I'll just share my screen. Can people hear me okay? Because there was an issue with
Yeah, Maura, now it's okay.
Okay, just a moment. Oh God. Sorry, I warned Palvi. Sometimes my work laptop is not so good with letting me share. And
Do you want me to share, Maura?
I think we're having that problem. Yeah, so that's why I sent Palvi my slides.
No worries.
I
I can.
really apologize because I'm gonna have to keep saying move ahead or something. It's happened before. Anyway, let's just crack on and thank you. I had plan B in place for Palvi to share my slides. So thank you very much for this opportunity. That's a photo of us working away at our writing workshop in Bangkok, based back in August. Next slide, please.
Is it moving? Because I can't see it. It's not moving?
No, it's not moving. If you could
Yeah,
do
yeah.
Not
slideshare.
moving, no.
Yeah, just give me 1 second.
Yeah.
So, yeah. So, yeah.
Yep, that's
Is
moved.
that okay? Yeah.
Yeah, just okay. So the overall objective of the session is to simply provide some practical evidence-based advice, following up from basically what Nico has started to do, and provide some guidance on developing and submitting successful applications. I thought maybe I'm conscious of time, so I thought maybe, but while I'm going along, maybe take 5 minutes to just write down your own ideas for a writing workshop that you think that you might want to start to develop, and then maybe we could take that in questions and answers. Next slide, please. So what I'm going to go through is the application sections, and then the application is much longer than I remembered. So it was actually really useful to go back and look at the application and so forth. And then what I'm going to do is focus in on the key sections, and basically that is the proposed program and key subsections, which is about 3,000 words. Actually, Palvi, this isn't the right version.
It's not the right one?
No, I'm sorry. I'm really
Just,
sorry, colleagues. Let me
1
just see
second.
if I can try something to see if I can get it up.
Just 1 second, maybe.
Bear
Can you
with
share
me.
your screen or just talk through your slides anyway?
Just give us 1 moment. I'm trying something else. Okay, I think we're in business. Okay, so I'm able to do it now. I remembered a wee trick that sometimes works, and it's worked. So I just want to acknowledge that I wasn't the PI on this application. It was Professor Sukanyaya Sawang, who's a professor at Edinburgh Napier University. I was sort of a co-investigator, so I just want to make that very clear. And we also had another co-applicant, which is a colleague based in Thailand. And we had a mentoring team. Let's see how many mentors. 1, 2, 3. We had about 5 mentors. Okay. And as we're going to see, ours is one of the messier ones that you referred to earlier. It's a regional approach that we took. And so it's interesting. It's good that we can compare and contrast, say, the Tunisia versus the regional approach that we took. And again, that partly reflects that Sukanyaya is from the region and is very well networked in the region. So that made that feasible. So the application, as I said, it's if you're thinking about applying for this, start engaging with the application, which is available for the last round, which was 2025 online still. So there's 7 sections. Okay. What I'm going to do is focus in on the workshop proposal, which is the chunky one. That's the 3,000 words. Okay. All of the rest are pretty standard. So what I'll focus on today then is the proposed program, which is the 3,000 words, and just give you some excerpts from our proposal and also what the funder is looking for. And then some tips on outcomes and impact, which Nico was highlighting, I think is really important. So just in terms of getting your psychologically ready for preparing for this application, looking back, our application was 25 pages in total, not with the financials, and about 8,000 words. So it is a long application. And for those of you who have done it, it's probably bringing back bad memories. I forgot actually, to be honest, how much work it was. And so what we'll do is look at sections 3 and 4 of the proposal. And just for context, I'll just give you the title and the abstract. I think just in terms of, getting started, first is probably, so the title was Advancing Innovation and Sustainability Research, Empowering Early Career Scholars in Developing Countries to publish in high impact journals, which is a mouthful. Unlike Nico's approach, we went for a max. So we applied for about 29,500. The max is 30,000. But I've learned from Nico that if I'm doing it again, Nico's approach, I actually like better that he was able to bring people to the UK. I think in terms of tips of getting started, you need to first, step one for all of this is finding suitable and reliable partners. And I'll come back to that later on. Think about how you're going to map what you're proposing to do to UN sustainability development goals. Why this is so relevant for a UFHRD forum is basically it's the whole ethos of this funding is to build human capital. It's human resource development, right? And in particular, you're targeting at emerging economies, right? So it's really such a good fit for what we do at UFHRD. Linked to tangible and measurable outputs and deliverables, and I'll give you some of examples of what we did, and Nico gave some examples as well. And also, as always, just look at previously funded awards to get a sense of what they have funded and maybe what they haven't funded, but that could also be an opportunity. So again, I'm not going to read off the slides verbatim, but abstract, those of you who review funding applications, right, and we have to be honest, the abstract is probably critical. It's your elevator pitch. Apologies to use this word, but it really is. So it's critical to get your abstract right. And I've kind of always found with an abstract, the key thing is whether it's a funding application or a journal article, it's context, problems, and the solutions that you're going to offer, right? And so I find this works for funding applications and journal articles. So context, it was a Southeast Asia, and in particular, complicated: Myanmar, Laos, Cambodia, Malaysia, Thailand, and Vietnam. Again, this only came about because of the PI's extensive networks. And it actually really worked though on the ground in the workshop. People were learning from each other. So I wasn't sure because I'm not that familiar with the culture, but the students, the learners, participants, sorry, loved that they came from the region of Southeast Asia. And again, that region is facing very significant challenges in terms of the environment, inequalities, demographic shifts. And so what we wanted to do, the problem, right, was this macro problem that they're facing, and the environment cannot be understated in that region. But then there's also a gap in terms of, engagement of, in our cases, early career researchers with kind of international peer-reviewed journals, attending international conferences. And so we were trying to kind of map the macro level issues that the region is facing with building capacity in terms of future scholars from the region. So that was the problem. And our solution, okay, was to try to equip early career researchers with the skills to publish in international peer-reviewed journals, enhance research capacity in general, also to assist with applying for future funding, and trying to claim, anyway, that this would assist the region with addressing global challenges. Okay. So this just comes from the funding application itself. All right. So I'm not going to obviously read this out, but what the proposed program needs to have, and Nico touched on this, is proposed activity. This is unique to this bid or this application, is this engagement with journal editors. Okay, it's quite unique. In our case, we actually brought the journal editors were mentors and participants, so they were there anyway, so to speak. And again, the participants found that really valuable, and we had a round table, but then they were also talking to us informally and asking if the drafts that they had submitted to get onto the workshop would be suitable for our journals and things. So it was a nice synergy. And the importance of identifying, so given our focus of Southeast Asia, sustainability, environment, demographics, we identified journals that we would encourage the participants to target, and we also put that in our kind of call for participation. So we kind of had 360 with the journals in theory. So this was our roundtable. Not everybody was editor-in-chief. We also had some associate editors, but again, they were there anyway because they were engaging as mentors with the workshop. So again, just in terms of, so the proposed program of work is 3,000 words, and that's where you really have to sell yourself. Okay, so what I've done is I went back to the feedback that I received from the reviewers, and what I picked out was the things that they liked, and I put that in red. Okay, just to make life easy for us. And so so again, normal introduction, I think ours is about 250 words, then your aim, okay, and what they liked was, in our case, they liked the regional focus. I think they believed it was credible because of the people involved. Tailored sessions targeting high quality peer-reviewed articles, experienced academics, and journal editors. But again, as Nico said, don't talk too much about yourself, as all of your experience, they see your CV. Drafting competitive grant applications, we did a session on that, and ongoing opportunities to engage with leading academics and mentors. And that dovetails with what Nico was saying. We make it really clear in the funding application that it's not a once-off. It's not even just for the duration of the application, but we're going to try to work and develop these colleagues, these ECRs, as a lasting relationship. And I think that's quite important because it's showing sustainability and sustained capacity building. And so again, normal, you have introduction and aims, then objectives. I think we had 5 objectives. Yeah, we had 5. Obviously, something about enhancing writing and publishing skills, because that's the remit of the application. Promote research viability and impact. So again, we're emphasizing impact, and that's a theme I'll come on to, because even though it's quite academic focused, obviously, well, those of us involved with the REF, we know it's not just about publishing in the journals, it's about ensuring impact. And so also, given the case that we're worried about the issues about environment and demographics and so forth, it's no good if we're trying to sell that just saying you're going to hit a 3 or 4 star journal. You need to show that you are going to try to create impact. Networks and collaboration. Again, the reviewers thought that our proposed networks and collaborative activities were genuine and sustainable. Sustainable academic development, again, this notion of sustainability in terms of the relationships that you build. And it's easier said than done, and some people will disappear, but you know, that's just the reality. Empower research on innovation and sustainability and linking it into a global impact. So we were able somehow to claim that what we were doing in terms of developing ECRs from Southeast Asia region, those countries that I highlighted, that actually potentially could have a global impact on issues around the environment and sustainability. So target participants, ours was ECRs, ours was focused on Southeast Asia. But, you know, just think creatively. And again, these are just some ideas that I was thinking. Female academics perhaps returning from maternity leave, academics with disabilities, LGBTQ plus academics, maybe mature ECRs. So again, think creatively in terms of who your target cohort is, and maybe don't always go with what they funded in the past. Think outside of, think creatively, and it might be an opportunity for you. So again, then what you need to do is outline your proposed activities, and I guess it's one of these things, more detail the better, and they really like that we went into almost like hourly detail of what we we're going to be doing. It was probably overkill, but they seemed to like it. So I suppose what actually took us much more time, and this is just a wee warning for people, is the recruitment process. So our target was 30 people to attend the workshop. So again, we had a slightly different mentor participation ratio than Nico had. Ours was not as high, which we probably now regret. But anyway, we had 175 applications. So it took a lot of time to go through those applications. We didn't interview because we didn't have time, but we used the same method as you did, Nico. People sent us a draft of their manuscripts and target journals, but that was incredibly time consuming. I think, to be honest, we ran overtime on that one. We did the face-to-face workshop in Bangkok in August. Again, extensive details about what we were going to be doing. And then the follow-up. Okay, so this isn't just kind of a once-off event. And this is where it gets tricky, right? Because you're kind of all geared up for your once-off event and the location that you're going to, but you also have to stay engaged, and your mentees need to stay engaged with you. So it really takes commitment. And I think, to be honest, that's something I underestimated. So just get that around your head. If you're applying for this, it just doesn't stop at the workshop. You need to keep engaging with your mentees. So again, we had quite a detailed sub-phases: manuscript development, submission of peer learning, knowledge sharing, and impact assessments. So, we've kept things going, and for each of these sub-phases, we had clear deliverables, which is really developing manuscripts, applying for funding, and so forth. Evaluation, again, as always, this is important, and monitoring. So we tried to embed evaluation and monitoring into each of those phases that I've outlined. Okay, and we are going to end the series. Again, it's a two-year application with a virtual showcase. So we're going to bring everyone together again online, whereas because we used up all our budgets. We didn't have the option that Nico had of bringing people to London, but I think that's an interesting approach. And again, what we're going to try to do is get people to talk about their journey, talk about hopefully some publications or things that are at R1 or R2, some funding applications that they've applied for, and how we can make it better. Okay, so that's still forthcoming. I think also the issue about inclusiveness is really important, and is at the ethos of this application, is that you can't be seen to be these British scholars and professors or whatever we are, going to Tunisia or going to Southeast Asia to, better ECRs or something. It has to be, genuine inclusivity, not a kind of colonial hat on, right? That we can learn from each other. And I think that's really, really important that you recognize that it's going to be an inclusive, it's going to be consultative, and that you recognize that you can learn from these ECRs in Southeast Asia or wherever your target country or region is. At the end of the proposed program, you do a summary timeline. Okay, so then just in terms of outcomes and impact, this just comes from the funding bid. So this is what they're stating is what are the expected outcomes and what is going to be the impact of your workshop. And they also want to make sure that you really emphasize the benefit to the researchers in the target countries. And again, it really is kind of simple in a way. You're building capacity. It's HRD, but you just probably need to make that sound more sophisticated than I've just described. Expected outcomes. So again, obviously, enhance research capacity. So it's the capacity, you enhance research capacity, then again, it's somewhat simultaneous. Some of it was just confidence building, also just reflecting on it, saying, oh, I don't think I can publish in a English journal. I'm like, of course you can. So some of it was just building the confidence of the participants. Increase research output. So again, target outputs, cross-cultural research was really flagged up. Cross-cultural, multidisciplinary research was really liked by our reviewers as well. Professional development, yeah, so again, I guess these things are all a little bit correlated. So again, is building confidence, and we had everyone make presentations in quite a big room on a stage and everything in English. So I mean, I was, it was daunting, but we did that on purpose. And if people were feeling nervous, we did kind of pre-coaching sessions with them and so forth, because it is daunting. They're on a stage speaking in a language that's not their native language, talking about their research. So again, reflections from what the participants said, they said that they actually found it daunting, but once they did it, it really built their confidence. Okay. Again, then what we did with our fourth outcome, we linked it back to the theme of the proposal. So you're kind of coming full circle, that there's these inputs, these outputs, there's sustainability, and then we're linking it back to the theme of the proposal. Okay, and then expected impact. So again, as I always say, I say it with the ref, I say it with everything. With impact, you can be a little bit creative, right? Because it's always going to be difficult to measure. Okay, and what I found is that with impact, people seem to like you to be a little bit creative and innovative with your alleged proposed impact. I don't know if other people have similar experiences. So we stated that it will strengthen research ecosystem in Southeast Asia, this workshop. We will create a pipeline of skilled researchers that will emerge. The workshop will enhance global collaboration. It will enhance policy and practice and influence. Okay, again, we link that back to the SDGs. So I think that's an important, again, reviewers like that. I didn't highlight it in red, but they like the fact that we were linking our impact claims to SDGs. Addressing regional challenges, and again, reviewers like the reduction in research barriers. So again, this goes back to the ethos of this entire funding application or funding the nature of the funding is that you're trying to reduce global inequalities, global disparities in terms of human capital and so forth. And again, it doesn't have to be just ECRs. Again, it can be, trying to bridge the gap between female academics who come back from maternity leave, right? So that could be a significant reduction in research barriers for that cohort of women. I'm nearly done. Practicalities. I think the biggest thing, and again, knowing other colleagues who have had this grant, is finding reliable and credible partners. You need to recognize, so in order for the country to be can participate in this, they need to basically be it's called ODA, which is official development assistance. So they're basically the government, UK government, is sending aid to these countries. Okay, so these countries are going to be resource constrained, right? And so and Nico is talking about the ethics, and it's again not to say that there's anything unethical that people were doing. It's just different. It's different cultures, and so you really need to have trust with the people you're working with on the ground. Okay, and that is a huge challenge. The good thing is we're doing this workshop now, and the call won't open up, I think, until the autumn. So you have time to start thinking about this and using, going to conferences to try to find, to try to network and find potential partners. And to be honest, with us, the on-the-ground partner, even though we had 5 countries, the main partnership was between ourselves and that university in Bangkok, where the PI had I think, worked previously. So she knew people there. So even if you're going for a regional approach, it doesn't mean that you have to, engage with, not engage, it doesn't mean that, for example, you're going to have to work with 4 other institutions. It might just be one other key institution, and that's how ours worked. So just something to think about. So I argue that, finding these credible and reliable and sustainable universities is mission critical. I suggest also liaising with your international offices, because they have contacts all over the world, and they have a good sense of what universities are, are good to work with, but just to keep it simple. So again, develop your own networks at conferences and so forth, engage with your international offices, but start thinking about that now, right? While you're thinking about what cohorts you might want to target. Yeah, so again, just really, because this is where these funding applications have gone wrong, is people partner with an institution that becomes problematic. Okay. And again, it's not being imperialist or anything. These are resource constrained countries and colleagues. So again, just in terms of just general funding tips, please do build on your existing research and professional practice track records. Again, where colleagues who haven't got funding, is sometimes they're picking a topic that they don't have previous experience with, and that's, even though it might be really interesting, really important, that's going to work against you. So just be realistic and pick something that you publish papers on, okay? Because you're supposed to be telling people, like advising people who are attending these workshops on how to publish. So, but as Nico said, don't go too much into your own expertise and blah blah, but just there's consistency. The same with the other people who you're partnering with. You need to be in that area. So maybe it's something around gender, LGBT plus, people who have expertise, if that's the cohort you're going for. Always get feedback on your drafts and colleagues and critical friends, and I'm happy to assist colleagues, especially my Napier colleagues, being time constrained myself, helping you develop your applications. And so that's our happy students at the end of our workshop in Bangkok, based in back in August. So happy to take questions.
Thank you so much, Maura, for this very insightful, presentation. And I think there was a lot to learn because considering, the two types of perspective that both the speakers brought into, and I think the kind of knowledge that was gained throughout the session was quite useful. And I think for any one of us who would possibly think about developing or working on these applications would really need to think about those key elements that you have touched upon. I think there's a lot to do basically with this application, and there are lots of things which are very, very intricate that you need to touch upon in these applications. So thanks a lot to both of you, Nico and Maura, for this wonderful presentations, and I think your personal touch that you brought to these presentations today by sharing your own personal experience and what your applications look like and what you think were useful was quite important. That's what I personally felt. We have some questions, I believe, in the chat. So yeah, John has mentioned something that he assumes that there are similar workshops for Western academics and how to publish in other regions and thus share knowledge, etc. So any one of you who would wish to respond to that?
Sorry, could you repeat the question? Probably, I apologize. I was looking
Yeah,
at
Maybe it was all I was saying. I mean, I take what you're saying more about sort of not wanting to appear Westerners going over there and telling people how to do. So, in the spirit of that sharing, what's effectively the other way, coming the other way?
Yeah.
So, Asia, Australia, wherever it may be, is there sort of similar sort of approaches there for approaching for funding as well as that type of partnering? Now, Nico says not to your knowledge, but I just wondered if the reverse also worked.
I don't actually have knowledge of that
No.
either. It's a good idea.
It's interesting in terms of maybe how that can be re-engineered the other way around. I guess that's all I was considering.
Yeah. All right. So I think we have another question from Dotun. So yeah, could you please speak briefly to the challenges of managing the project versus the initial plans regarding who on the team would be responsible for what? And I'll go on to the next question.
Yeah.
So like, how did the project work evolve?
Yeah, I mean, we had our partner in Thailand was amazing. So she hands up, she took care of, because it was hosted in Bangkok, so she took care of the logistics, to be honest, Doten. And again, because I think Suki and I worked there, definitely knew this lady in Thailand. So it for us, I think it just ran unusually smoothly for this sort of an event because of an excellent partner. And to be honest, the partner, she was, I think, going for promotion this year, so she was very incentivized to make this thing work well, to be just blunt about it. I think the biggest challenge, Doten, that we're facing is ongoing engagement, and I alluded to that in my presentation. So, and that's what I like about Nico's model, is that he brought people over to London, because the ongoing online engagement, well, we all know this, online things can often be difficult. And we're finding that difficult, and we're finding so it was August when we did the workshop, and everyone's all gung-ho, but then people start teaching and they get busy and they start missing deadlines with the drafts that they're supposed to send us. So it's no different than what we have here in our daily lives. So that for us is the biggest challenge. So I think we're going to have to do kind of a regroup, like a restart possibly, just to get everyone together, get people re-engaged, and so forth, maybe in the spring when the teaching starts to wind down. So that's the biggest challenge, is actually kind of the sustainability of all of us, and it's not just the learners, that we get busy as well. And I know I've let feedback slip a bit and so forth. So that's the biggest challenge, Doten.
Absolutely. And
Is
I would
keeping
think
it
that that
going.
is, yes, really understandable. And I wondered how you would, if the funder, well, in terms of timelines, right? If you're having to push some things back, would that impact, delivery timelines for the funder? And, are you having conversations about that, about, potentially things may have slowed down and, we did not anticipate this and, therefore we have to do this and that?
No, not as far as I know. But again, I'm not the PI, so I'm not, Sukinyali, but I actually checked with her sort of that same question before the seminar today. And she said she's confident that, we'll be able. I mean, I think the other thing, and I don't know what you think about this, Nico, is that for me, there's a big difference between people submitting these articles and then actually getting them published, right? So that is just like with us, with our, our own kind of objectives and so forth, like, and then sometimes I found one of my mentees submitted something way too soon. I was like, okay, just wait it. But again, she was under pressure from her institution to submit, and of course it got rejected. And it's so that's that, but we're familiar with that exact same dilemma, but they're facing that as well, and maybe even more, because there's just so much pressure, on universities in emerging economies for people who went into the job as teachers to now start publishing. So that's a complexity with all of this that I've found that I didn't. Well, I should have known, but I'm just seeing people submitting things too soon. The other area where we really had to come in is help people adjust reviewer feedback, and so that's been a challenge.
And I think Nico wants to speak to this too as well.
Yeah, yes. To your first point, so we had to ask for extensions to British Academy because our reason was that it's not that we asked for little money. We asked for almost a full amount of money, but we were not able to spend all of it. So we asked for extension. We basically include new activities in the project, and I have to say that British Academy was always very flexible in terms of their response. So I do think in the application you have to put the most credible program for them to evaluate. But if something happens, I'm pretty sure that they will have the flexibility to to accommodate that. So yes. In terms of organizing, I think on our side, sort of, I would say, technical thing that you might want to check before applying was the question of payments from the funders in the UK to the institution abroad. So we had quite a few difficulties on that side. I have to say I won't go too much in details because it doesn't matter. Every institution is different, but it's an area which required a long work, especially from the PI who was based at the University of Westminster, and collaboration with the research office and so forth. There was another part of the question which was about finding reliable partners.
Yes. I wanted to know.
I think absolutely this has to be done way before applying, because in many ways the partners shape the kind of application that you're going to write. And one of the key criteria for the funder is whether those partners are reliable and solid and so forth. So that's the central thing. Yeah.
Great. Thank you so much. Nico. Thanks, Maura.
Yeah, Maura, I had a question. You mentioned that the interdisciplinary approach that you had adopted in your application was quite appealing to the to the funders. So, would you like to expand a bit more on that? How did you?
Sure. I mean, so we had economists, we had innovation people, we had people who specialize in sustainability, who were part of the, again, their publications reflected that. And so we could make the claim that we were interdisciplinary. So it's just, again, it's, picking the team, picking your partners, and you can, start thinking about that now, really.
Oh yeah, so that means that, in and all, I think what I feel is that, this application needs a lot of commitment, basically, from the very start to, just from the very point of ideation in terms of what you want to do, who you want to do it with, and, what's the whole plan going to look like. So there's a whole bunch of things that one needs to consider if you're thinking about, applying for this application. Yeah.
And
Yeah.
it's
So
also the journal editors as well, and associate editors. That's another complexity to this one. So again, it's thinking about people that in editorial and associate editor roles. Uh, Maybe Nico wants to add to that, about the editor requirement.
Um, I think we had editors from 4 different journals, if I remember correctly. I don't remember any specific requirement, but I think that the key thing was that those journals were really where those participants could be likely to submit. So it was a credible proposition that it was a kind of direct link between the research of participants and the editors who were then attending the workshop. And in fact, the outcome of the special issue came from that connection, because when the editor was in the workshop, although they came online, and they heard all the projects, and then they said, well, actually, we could do a special issues with this project. So there was a very good match, and luckily that was recognized by the funder.
Jen has a question.
Yeah, it was just following on from that. I was wondering, when you were talking more, did you do a special issue with your journal, with
Oh,
Joette
my
at
journal.
all?
Not yet, but it's something that if we can get a critical mass, of
Yeah.
papers and of sufficient quality, we'd definitely be open to, because as you probably know, anyone who's like editors, so publishers love special issues because they get high downloads and citations, which help our metrics. So I'm on the lookout, but it just hasn't quite emerged yet, but I'm hopeful.
Mhm, mhm.
So John has another question. Yep, John.
It's just a comment. I'm sure that the International Journal of Human Resource Development People Practice and Research, or HRDI, would be very happy to have a look, as well as some of the associate journals that we have, European Training Journal and so forth.
I think the challenge could be honest, John, is the quality.
But yeah, that's absolutely fine. Yeah, it's just it was a suggestion in terms.
Yeah,
So
it's an excellent suggestion.
So yeah, Alan is the associate editor. He can speak more to it, I'm sure. But International Journal is really designed for early career researchers.
Yeah, no, excellent.
And I think there are regional opportunities as well. Many of these journals, they look for, publications and submissions coming in from, these areas which are less, less participative that way. So they do have, they do open up spaces for such like opportunities. Yeah. I also have another question that was just coming to my mind while we were talking about the journals. So the question is more around, Nico, how do you see it that, for different countries or for different institutions, the requirements for where the paper gets published, is quite different. So at the time of identification of, for example, when you're developing your application and you're putting forward that, we expect the individuals or the participants to this program would be submitting their papers to these kind of journals. So is that very high ranked journals that you're looking at, or you're looking at the requirements of the specific regions or the institutions, what their requirements are? So how do you see that? Because it's completely different for different parts of the globe. That's what I've seen, that the kind of quality would certainly differ, the kind of levels of journals would really differ. So how do you try and put that in the applications?
Is that a question for both of us, or?
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah, well, we focus on the sort of the leading journal in the field. So these were like leading international journals, but they were they're all based in UK based
Okay.
journals. So we didn't focus on journals in other regions of the world. I think that could be possibly a good idea, but it would depend also on the field. I do have the sense though that the scheme is geared towards publication in sort of top tier journals, and I think that's part of how it is evaluated. I mean, that doesn't always mean that these are the best journals in the field according to the field, but
All right.
Yeah, I'm just looking at our application, and yeah, we kind of went for the top journals, which might not be realistic, but it helped us get the funding.
Yeah.
Because I think that's the whole purpose. I think part of it is, and I guess this is the British Academy perhaps being a little bit imperialist, is view that, you know, it could be a top journal published in Vietnamese, right? Really great work, but they
Yeah.
want it in an English journal. And, you know, and maybe one that's linked to cabs if it's in management. And so I suppose there's a little bit of imperialism from the academy on this, which
Yeah.
probably isn't right. But I'm just looking and I'm like, based on your question, I'm like, oh gosh, you know, we've selected all these English Western journals to try to publish Southeast Asian research. Probably not right.
Yeah, Nico, you want to add something to it?
yeah, something I forgot to mention might be of interest. So as Maura mentioned, the scheme is also linked to the Sustainable Development Goals, and so we were also quite explicit into linking the proposal to that. But we also shaped it quite explicitly as a transdisciplinary project, in the sense that we try to link the academic research to the work of organizations in the field in Tunisia, non-governmental organizations. So two sessions of our workshop were included also just guests from non-governmental organizations dealing with, in our case, migrants in Tunisia. And so we were able to claim that there was that aspect of sort of going beyond academia a little bit. So we had a session in which we as scholars were hearing what they were doing, in the field, and that kind of make us think about new aspects of our research, so new ideas for research, and vice versa. They were hearing what's happening on the side of the research, and so that's an interesting way of making those sustainable goals alive in a way, because you bring people together, not only within academic disciplines, but beyond academia.
Nico, was that part of your impact? Do you recall? That's an excellent idea.
I don't remember whether we label it as impact, but it was part of our programs of activities.
That's a really good idea. Excellent. Yeah.
Yeah, I think that adds on to the creativity of how, again, how you think about trying to put something different to and bringing something different to the table. So that's quite nice in terms of. So that's why I felt that this varied perspective of how the two applications and the kind of learning that we've had. I think it's quite vast specifically. Yeah. Yeah. So do we have any more questions? Anybody else or any comments? Anybody else who wants to share something, how they felt about the session?
I had a question about equity and like really getting to the women and marginalized people within the countries. Do you have any? We spend a lot of time on how we persuade women, maybe give childcare vouchers or something to get them to come. Is that an issue at all in the application, Nico? You filled out. Did you? How was the gender split eventually?
I think eventually we actually had more women than men participating.
Okay.
I don't remember on the top of my head. I think we did talk about equity in general in terms of parts of the selection process, but I don't remember any specific mechanism that we use. Eventually we had quite a lot of application from women, and that they were very good quality, and so if just basically my answer is that it was quite easy to achieve that kind of equity result. We didn't have to make an effort, although I realize that in other contexts it might require a very purposeful effort to get there. So I don't have an advice there, unfortunately.
Yeah, that's fine. Yeah. John, another question. Oh, sorry.
Oh, sorry. I'm just looking at what we wrote because I print. And so again, we ended up with more women than men actually. And I think because we are ECRs, they tended to be younger. So childcare, obviously making big generalizations.
Yeah.
But we talked about that we strong. I think we said we made it clear in our posting that we want inclusivity and diverse gender representation. We put that in how we advertise the job. It was just because we were dealing with some countries where there could be challenges to gender equality, so we put that actually in our specification call, and it seems to have worked. As we said, like Nico said, we ended up with more women.
Thanks, John.
Just simply to say, as Secretary of the UFHRD, great to see people from Northampton, Coventry, Worcester and Newcastle, as well as other organisations joining us today. And I hope you enjoyed the session, and may well see you in York for the conference that Alan is hosting.
Thank you, Palvi, for organising it. I've learned so much from all of you and from Nico. So I'm ready to start thinking about my next application.
A pleasure also for me, and I also want to say I'm also available to if you want to get in touch for any feedback or any comment. I'm happy to to be there.
We've got lots of people, who really enjoyed the session, and I think it has been a very, very informative session. And I personally enjoyed listening to both of you, Maura and Nico, and yeah, looking forward to another one with you guys again, and maybe on something different. Yeah.
So we'll organise something, I think, before or just after Easter, maybe on cross-country collaborations. We've got one in Saudi, India, and in India. And so we try and do something every term if possible. And clearly we're focused on meeting Alan Johnson's deadline for submissions to the conference. So that's in the chat as well. So thank you ever so much. That's really reassuring when you're going through all these pages and pages of documents, and to know that actually you can get a bit of feedback as well. And I think, you've made a really difference with your project. So it's really, really appreciate your input. Thank you. It's inspiring.
Thank you.
Thanks to all the participants as well.
Everyone.
Thank you
very much.
Thanks, everyone.
Thank
Bye.
you.
Bye.
Thank you.
Thanks for the
Thank you.
extension, Alan.